Hey there, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Sunday. The first since we got the results of the primary. Some really interesting races, and we are reacting to those tonight. Of course, eyes in the Valley and around the country were on the congressional race for District 22. And despite a long list of challengers and a term that was full of controversy, Valley Republican Devin Nunes seems to be doing just fine. Then there's Democrat Andrew Janz, who says he is right where he wants to be. I sat down with him the day after the primary. Andrew Janz joining us in studio. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you told your supporters on the night of the primary, you said this is a victory for us. Why do you feel that way?
Well, in the jungle primary system, we wanted to make sure that we were in the top two. That was our main goal. And I think we're also well positioned for November. We exceeded our expectations. We did better than our internal polling suggested. So we feel very comfortable with the results coming out of last night.
You thought that you were going to have a lower number than what you ended up getting?
Yeah, the Fresno Bee actually interviewed me the day of the primary, actually the day before the primary, and I told them high 20s. And so we were at about 32 last I checked.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You know, when we break it down by county, I was looking at this. You know, Fresno County, you did better there, as you'd expect. You got 34% of the vote. Nunes is 56%. Tulare County, though, there was a little bit bigger gap in favor of the congressman, with 61% going to him, 28% to you. What do you need to do going forward? Or do you have to focus more in Tulare County, or do you need to focus more on getting the people who would support you in Fresno County out? These are all strategic decisions I know you got in front of you.
Right. Well, the interesting thing about yesterday was that we tried a number of different tactics. We focused on certain precincts while ignoring others. And so we've seen that in the precincts that we focused on, we had higher than expected turnout for our voters. In some precincts we had 3-to-1, 2-to-1 against Devin Nunes. And so we're going to be able to use what we learned from last night and from yesterday in the general election, which is going to be useful. And here's something else. Devin Nunes spent $3 million to protect his seat as of yesterday. And if you compare his numbers to 2016, he received about 40,000 fewer votes than he did in 2016, and that's about a 10-point difference there, and I think that's significant.
2016, though, also a presidential election year.
Sure.
So that's driving a lot of people to the polls.
But look at the amount of money that he spent, $3 million, and you know it's one of those things. You know, we spent around 1.2 to 1.3. So what I've been telling folks is, look, you know, the fundraising aspect is very important, but you can't buy a congressional seat. And we've seen this in places like Pennsylvania, where the Democrat there spent around $3 to $4 million, outspent by the Republican. I think he spent around $10 million. And so we're seeing the same thing here. I'm not under any illusions that this is going to be an uphill battle. I'm the underdog in this race. We have a lot of work to do between now and November, but I think that we can still pull this off.
What do you think is the message that's resonating best with voters?
You know, a lot of people like to talk about what's going on with the Russia investigation. I found that most voters aren't paying attention or aren't really concerned about the Russia issue. And so what I've been focused on are the bread and butter issues that matter to people in the Central Valley. Water in particular is the most important issue when I speak to folks that live here, and these are people that aren't even growers or farmers, but they understand that agriculture is a huge component of our local economy. We have the Trump administration engaging in a tariff war with other countries in Europe and in China. I think that's going to have a huge negative economic impact here locally, and that's something that I've been focused on as well.
You know, it's interesting. I live in your district, as you know, and I got all sorts of text messages. I got calls from your volunteers on the day of the primary encouraging me. You know, they don't know who I am. They're just calling people, you know.
I got text messages from my own volunteers.
Did you really?
Myself.
But the point is that, you know, you have a small little army working for you here.
We do.
But in the end, you can have everything. You can have all the fundraising, you can have all the support, you can have some slick ads, you can have all that. And if Democrats and people who support you don't turn out to vote, either in the primary or in November, it's all for naught. Yeah, how concerned are you about turnout just in general these days?
Yeah, there's a number of things there. We know that traditionally Republicans perform better in primary elections. I think that in November we're going to have an electorate that is younger and I think more diverse. I think that plays into our hands. And even beyond that, looking at the numbers coming in last night, we peeled off a lot of Republican voters. And I've been out there and I've been talking to everybody, as I told you before, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. And quite a few Republicans came on board. Quite a few Republicans are supporting our campaign. I think that number is only going to grow between now and November. What I'm hoping is to have a debate with the congressmen. The voters of this district deserve that. We need to have a debate on our vision. My vision is one of investment in our local economy. I'm talking about investment in water infrastructure, in transportation, investing in our schools, our teachers, and our students. And what is his vision? I don't know what it is. It's really been, I hear a lot of stuff about water from him, but I think that he's actually done zero on water. Actually, in 2017, he sponsored a bill that essentially said that there would be no federal funds for water infrastructure here in the Central Valley. I think that's the wrong approach. I think that California sends a lot of money to Washington and we get very little in return. I think it's time to collect on that, and we need help here in the Central Valley. But
what I am hearing from you, though, is that you think that Russia and all the issues that really play big on Twitter and with your supporters nationally, do you think that might be a losing issue if you take that to November?
Look, for a lot of voters, they are concerned about national security. I know that that's a big issue here locally. We do need to figure out what happened in 2016, the extent that the Russians were involved in our elections. The only way that we figure that out is if we allow the special prosecutor to complete his investigation. My opponent has attempted to hamstring this investigation from day one. And so I think that the bigger picture, the national picture, is absolutely important because this is why we're seeing all of the national attention. This is why so many folks are involved in this election that don't even live in the district. Devin Nunes, he raised around $20,000 in district. I raised close to $100,000 in district in this cycle.
It just shows how much outside money is coming in, though, for both of you, really, because I know you raised a lot more than $100,000. Last question, just about 30 seconds.
Sure.
We were talking before we went on air. You're still working. You're telling me about a case you're going to be starting up, stuff like that. You going to keep working here? Is that your idea as you're moving towards November?
At the beginning of the campaign, I thought that I would have to take a leave of absence.
Yeah.
But I've been able to balance work and the campaign. I am ethically and legally obligated to keep the two separate, so I've been able to do that successfully. And you're right, I'm still working, and tomorrow I have a pretty high-profile arraignment that is going to be in Department 31, so yeah.
Well, we'll be covering that case, and by the time you're watching it right now, you will have seen it as well. Local prosecutor Andrew Janz, he's running for Congress against Devin Nunes. Thanks so much. We appreciate your time being here.
Thank you, Evan.